Hi guys, good day. I am Ms. Clarke and I will be teaching you today. But before we begin, let's make sure that we have our resources. So take time to pause to go get your writing materials, pen, pencil, paper, whether it's a notebook, a calculator. As today's topic, we'll be using the calculator with directed numbers. Okay? All right. So as I am now getting the lesson prepared, I just want to remind us that we are all intelligent, that we are beautiful, and that we will achieve excellence. All right, so let's begin. Directed numbers. What is a direct number? So sign numbers, that is numbers with a positive or negative sign in front of them, are called directed numbers. So the set of integers, which is usually represented by the letter Z, will contain all the directed numbers. So that's from negative infinity, like negative 120, straight up to positive infinity, big numbers like positive 102, right? And we know that there are larger numbers and smaller numbers. So the set of integers would be the whole numbers that has either positive signs in front of them or negative signs in front of them. And it can be represented on a number line. So we should be familiar with a number line from before. Sometimes you will see it in graphs. A number line is more or less like a straight line that has numbers on them. And it can be used to show directed numbers. So we can see here the positive numbers on this side and the negative numbers on this side. As you can see, the cursor is moving. So the positive numbers to the right of the origin 0, because 0 is neither positive or negative. So this is the anchor or the marker to separate the positive and the negative numbers. So the positive numbers are to the right of the origin 0 and the negative numbers are to the left of the origin 0. Let's get some notes. This is going to be provided for you, so you don't need to take out and write out notes. You could always write it afterwards. So just follow along with me and read. So as I was saying, 0 is neither negative or positive. And as you move along to the right of the number line, the numbers will increase. So here we can see that 5 here is bigger than 3. 5 is greater than 3, and vice versa. 3 would be less than 5. And as you move along to the left of the number line, the numbers decrease. So it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So this would mean that negative 6 here is actually less than negative 2. So believe it or not, negative 2 is actually a bigger number than negative 6. And we can see it played on the number line. So one thing for us to know without a shadow of a doubt is that negative numbers are always, always, always smaller in value than a positive number. And it makes sense. So for those of us that know about money and know about taking credit, credit is like when you owe money. And when you have money in your pocket to spend, that's just like you're having a debit, so you just have money flowing, right? So once you have money that is just yours that you could use however you want, that would be positive. However, when you're owing somebody money, that's a negative thing. And similarly, you can look at it in terms of temperature. Say we're in a temperate country where things can get real hot. When in the summer and in the winter times it's really, really cold, and it could have negative degrees in terms of weather, in terms of Celsius, in terms of Fahrenheit. So those are things in terms of practical applications of positive and negative numbers. All right. So as I was saying, we'll be using our calculators. So make sure that you have your calculators handy. All right. On our scientific calculators, we should be able to see the plus or minus button. So you see that I put a little yellow arrow here indicating where it will be on the calculator. So this is a full calculator. At the bottom and a middle bottom, you would see a plus or minus sign. On some calculators, it might just see a negative sign only. And this button is really, really important from changing positive numbers to negative numbers and vice versa. You might have a negative number that you now need to change back into a positive number when you're doing calculations. And this calculator is going to be your new best friend in terms of maths. It's going to really help you as time goes along. And as we have here, the plus or minus button can be used when we need to add, subtract, multiply, or divide directed numbers. I'm going to start off this lesson doing the easy method first in terms of just showing you straight on the calculator, which is super, super easy. But then we're going to know the proper rules. And you might want to know why I need to go through and learn all these extra rules for, but it's important because in multiple choice, which would be one of your components for your exam, for your CSEC exam, you are not allowed to use your calculator. So you need to know the fundamental rules. So starting off with our calculators, I want us to do this exercise, 10 simple questions, and we just putting it in the calculator, simple as that. So I'll do the first one for you. I have my phone here, so hoping that you all can see good. And you would see that I have my negative button right here that I'll be using. So the first one says 3 plus negative 2. So we're going to type in 3. Then you're going to put your plus sign, and then you're going to press your plus or minus button, and then you're going to type 2, and then you're going to type the equal sign, and then you should get the answer 1. Did you all get that? Let's try it. So I think that you all should have gotten 1. At this point in time, I will give you all time to pause the video so that you can do the questions 1 to 10. You should be able to do it in about 5 minutes or so. So take your time, do these questions, pause the video, and then I'll continue with the answers. And we're back. So you will have unpaused. And for number 1, you'd have said that 3 plus negative 2 is 1. And when you put it on our calculator, we'd have gotten that. Similarly, when we do the others, we have negative 3. So you notice I'm not saying minus 3. The proper thing to say is negative 3, take away positive 2, and that will be equal to negative 5. When you plug that in your calculator, that is what you're going to get. For number 3, we have 6, take away negative 3. And the answer on our calculator, when we type it in, we'll get 9. Number 4, we have 4 plus positive 4, which we'll get 8. At this point in time, I just want to pause to highlight something. You notice that we have signs in front of the numbers, and sometimes we do have signs. So a positive number could be represented with just the whole number by itself, or we can also put a plus sign in front of it to emphasize that it is a positive number. So I'll continue. We're on question 5. Negative 5 take away negative 7. And that answer would yield 2 as the result. Question 6. We have 9 take away positive 2. Answer is 7. Question 7. 7 plus negative 3. The answer is 4. Question 8. 8 plus positive 2 would be 10. Number 9. 10 take away negative 5. The answer is 15. And question 10. Negative 2 take away negative 4. The answer is positive 2. Wow. So let's learn the rules. So there are different rules. So there are rules for addition, there are rules for subtraction, there are rules for multiplication, as well as division, and they're all different rules that we need to learn. So pay close attention. The rules are different, but once you take your time to understand the concept, it should be easy for us to remember. And you have the benefit now of just replaying the video over and over until you understand it more or less. So rule number 1 for addition. When adding numbers with the same sign, you add the numbers. And the answer would have the same sign as the numbers. So that's words. Maths is about numbers. So let's do some examples to see how it goes. The first example, we have positive 7 plus positive 3. So they have the same sign. All the signs are positive. You have a positive 7 and a positive 3. When you add 7 and 3, you get 10. And then we want to keep the sign of the number. The sign of the number is positive. So the answer would be positive 10. Let's take a next example. We have the same sign. We have negative 7 added to negative 3. The same sign is negative, a negative 7 and a negative 3. And we add in those two numbers. According to the rules here, when adding numbers with the same sign, we add the numbers. So you're going to add the absolute values of the numbers. So we're going to add the 7 and the 3. 7 and 3 is 10. And what you're going to do, we're going to keep the sign of the number. The sign of the number is negative. It's negative 7, negative 3. 7 and 3 is 10. And we keep the sign of the negative number, which is negative. So it's going to be negative 10. So we add the 7 and the 3, and you keep the negative sign. So that's the first rule in terms of addition of directed numbers. Rule number 2, when we're dealing with different signs. So when adding numbers with different signs, you have a positive and a negative, or a negative and a positive. What you're going to simply do is to ignore the signs and just subtract the absolute numbers. So you're going to subtract the numerically smaller number from the numerically larger number. In this case, we're ignoring the signs. So whichever is the bigger number, we're going to use that and take away the smaller number from it. And we have some examples. So the first example here, we have positive 7 plus negative 3. So you're following along with the cursor. So we have different signs. We have a positive 7 and a negative 3. What we're going to do, we're going to ignore the sign. So basically, we're just dealing with the numbers 7 and 3. So that's the first thing. And what you're going to do, we're going to subtract it. So 7 minus 3 is 4. And then the second part of it is that we keep the sign of the numerically larger number. Between 7 and 3, which one bigger? 7. And the sign that corresponds with the 7 in this example is a plus sign. So the answer is going to be positive. So that's how we're going to get positive 4. Let's move on to the second example. We have negative 7 plus positive 3. So we have a negative 7 and a positive 3, two different signs. What we're going to do, we're going to subtract the two numbers. So you already know that 7 minus 3 is 4. And the second part of this rule is that you want to keep the sign of the numerically larger number. The larger number is 7. The sign that corresponds with 7 in this second example is a minus sign. So therefore, we're going to keep the minus sign. And that's how we end up getting negative 4. I hope that you all are really following. We have example 3. So we have positive 2 plus negative 8. Two different signs, a positive sign, a negative sign. We keep the sign of the larger number, in this case, which is negative 8. 8 is a bigger number. The sign in front of 8 is negative. So we know that we're going to have a negative result. So the answer is supposed to be negative. So you're going to have 8 minus 2 is 6. And then you keep the minus sign. So that's how we get negative 6. And our last example for rule number 2 in addition is negative 2 plus positive 8. the bigger number here is 8, the sign in front of the 8 is positive. So you know that the result is going to be a positive answer. So you have your plus sign on the outside here, and the difference between 8 and 2 is 6. So our answer would be positive 6. So moving on. If there are any questions, please ask. Take time to pause, respond, let me know, and I will try to clarify anything that I can for you. Okay? So we just did the rules of addition. There are 2 rules when they're the same sign and when they're different signs. Now we're going to go through the rules of subtraction for directed numbers. And similarly, there would be different rules for when there are positive and negative. But how I did it in this case, I just try to put it like this, that subtraction is the opposite of addition. And that makes sense. If you're not giving something, you're taking something. If you're not taking, you're giving. All right? And as we know, the opposite of multiplying is dividing, etc. So subtracting directed numbers is actually the same as adding the additive inverse or the opposite number. All right, so the additive inverse of a positive number would always be negative and vice versa. So if we start with the number 10, 10 is a positive number. The additive inverse of 10 would be negative 10. If you're dealing with 100, the additive inverse of 100 would be negative 100. That's the additive inverse. And I gave some examples here. The additive inverse of positive 3 is negative 3. And likewise, the additive inverse of negative 5 is positive 5. We have 2 examples at the bottom here that we're going to work out. So the first example, we have negative 2 take away positive 4. So as we were saying, what we now need to do is to convert the subtraction into a plus sign and add the additive inverse. So in brackets here we have plus 4. The additive inverse of adding 4 would be taken away 4. So now it's going to become add negative 4. So now becomes negative 2 plus negative 4. And then we just revert back to the rules that we learned just now for adding directed numbers. All right. So going back again, we're going to have negative 2 plus negative 4. You have a negative 2 and a negative 4. They are the same signs. When it's the same signs and we add in, what we do, we add the 2 numbers and we keep the signs. So you're going to add the 2 and the 4, which would be 6. And then you keep the sign, which is negative. So therefore, our resulting answer will be negative 6. Next example, we have negative 3 take away negative 7. So the additive inverse of negative 7 will be positive 7. So now it becomes negative 3 plus positive 7. And in this case, we have a negative 3 and a positive 7. And when we have 2 different signs and we are adding, what do? We find the difference between the 2 numbers, which is 7 and 3. The difference between 7 and 3 is 4. And then we take the sign of the numerically bigger number. In this case, the numerically bigger number is 7, and the sign in front of 7 is a positive. So therefore, we're going to end up with positive 4 as our answer. Let's move on to this exercise. 6 questions. We're starting small. So we want to use the rules, not our calculators, to add and subtract these directed numbers. So we're going to do it using the rules that we learned just now. If you want, you could pause, you could rewind, follow over the rules, and then attempt the questions. When you finish answering the 6 questions, you can then confirm it with your calculator. You are going to pause the video now, and in your notebooks or in your piece of paper, you're going to answer these 6 questions on your own. All right, welcome back. I know that you all should have answered these 6 questions and you all would have confirmed it with your calculator. Let's do the answers. So number 1, we have 12 plus negative 7. So we have positive 12 and negative 7. So we'd say that we have 2 different signs. When we have 2 different signs, we find the difference between the 2 numbers, and then we keep the sign of the numerically bigger number, which in this case is 12, and 12 is positive. So therefore, we're going to have positive 12 minus 7, which is going to be positive 5. Question 2, we have negative 4, take away positive 8. We are taking away. Remember that subtraction is the opposite of addition. So now we want to change the subtraction to addition and find the additive inverse of positive 8. The additive inverse of positive 8 is negative 8. So it becomes negative 4 plus negative 8, which is what we're going to have. And now that we're adding, we're now going to apply the rules of addition. We have 2 numbers. We have negative 4 and negative 8, and they have the same sign. When we have the same sign, what we do? We add the 2 numbers, and then we keep the sign. So 4 plus 8 is 12. And what is the sign of negative 4 and negative 8? Minus. So you're going to put the minus sign in front of it. So that's how we end up getting negative 12 as the result. Question 3. We have 3 take away negative 2. So the operation is take away. So we know that take away is the opposite of adding. So we now want to change the take away sign to a plus sign. So it becomes 3 plus, and in negative 2, we now want to replace it with the additive inverse of negative 2. The opposite of negative 2 will be positive 2. The additive inverse of negative 2 is positive 2. So you end up having 3 plus positive 2. And we know that 3 plus 2 is 5. Question 4. I hope you all are really getting this good. If not, just take your time, do it over. We all there. We can do this. You can do this. We will achieve excellence, okay? You're going to get this. You really are. Question 4. We're going to have negative 5 plus negative 4. So we have negative 5, negative 4, same sign. So we add the 2 numbers, which is 9, and you keep the sign, which is minus. So we get minus or negative 9. Question 5. We have 8 plus negative 7. So we add in, and we have 2 different signs. When we have 2 different signs and we add in, what we do, we find the difference between the 2 numbers and we keep the sign of the numerically bigger number, which in this case is 8 and positive. So you end up having positive 1 as the answer, and the working is there for you to follow. And doing this working is going to help you. Repetition is key. Maths practice, perfect practice will make you better. I would also boost your confidence as well as your speed for when you need to do your paper 2 exams. Question 6. We have 4 take away negative 5. So when we're taking away, we need to change it to a plus sign and add the additive inverse. So the additive inverse of negative 5 is going to be positive 5. So you're going to end up getting 4 plus positive 5, which would be positive 9. And that's it. So far, we would have gone over the rules of adding and subtracted directed numbers. All right? So you can pause this video if you think that it was too much, and then we continue when you're ready to do the other two rules, which is for multiplication and division. So now I'm going to go on to the rules for multiplication of directed numbers. And we know that directed numbers are both the positive and negative numbers that are whole. So the rules for multiplication. I know this is something that every CXC child knows. It's always say everybody saying this. A positive by a positive is a positive. A negative by a negative is a positive. A positive by a negative or negative by a positive is always going to be a negative result. And then there's a little attitude sometimes, right? But those rules are used for multiplication as well as for division, as we'd find out later on. And let's put it in context. So I have the notes written that I would read. Multiplication with the same signs is positive. So if you have two positive numbers, like say 10 multiplied by 2, 10 and 2 are positive. 10 by 2 would be 20. So you end up getting a positive answer, which is positive 20. Similarly, if you have two negative numbers and you multiply them, you would get a positive result. Strange, but very true. So let's think of two negative numbers. Say negative 5 and say what, negative 3. And negative by negative is a positive. And 3 by 5 would be 15. So negative 3 multiplied by negative 5 would actually give you a positive result, which is positive 15. So that's the first set of rules for multiplication. When you have the same sign, a positive by a positive is a positive, and negative multiplied by a negative number would yield a positive result. And the second part of that is multiplication with different signs, would yield with two different signs. I just want to stress only two different signs is negative. So take, for example, the product of two numbers with different signs. So if you have positive 2 multiplied by negative 3, a positive by a negative is a negative, 2 by 3 is 6, so you're going to get negative 6. And similarly, negative 4 multiplied by negative 4 multiplied by positive 5, a negative by a positive would be a negative, and 4 by 5 is 20, so you're going to get negative 20 as your result. Now, let's use our calculator. So you want to take out your calculator again. So if you don't have a calculator, like how I don't have my calculator at this point, we're going to use our phone. And I will do number 1 with you all. So we have negative 3 multiplied by positive 5. So on our calculator, we're going to use the plus or minus sign, and you're going to press that. Then you're going to press the number 3. Then you're going to press the multiplication button. Then you're going to multiply by 5. So you're going to press 5. Equal sign. And in your calculator, you will get negative 50. So you're going to pause the video now and do the balance of the questions from number 2 to 10 now. So welcome back. Let's continue. So question 1 was already done, so let's move on to question 2. We have positive 4 multiplied by negative 2. A positive by a negative is a negative, and 4 multiplied by 2 is 8. So our answer will be negative 8. Question 3. We have negative 7 multiplied by negative 2. A negative by negative is a positive, and 7 by 2 is 14. So your answer will be positive 14. Question 4. We have positive 4 multiplied by positive 1. A positive by a positive would give you a positive. And 4 multiplied by 1 is 4. Sometimes I often see children would end up writing positive 5 because they end up adding the 4 and the 1. But you have to remember what is your operation that you're focusing on here. Multiplication. 4 multiplied by 1. 4 times 1 is 4. So always be careful with that, and you could always use your calculator to confirm your answer. Question 5. We have positive 6 multiplied by negative 7. A positive by negative is a negative, and 4 and 6 by 7 is 42. So question 5, positive 6 multiplied by negative 7, the answer will be negative 42. Question 6, we have negative 4 multiplied by negative 3. A negative by negative is a positive, 4 by 3 is 12, so you end up getting positive 12. Question 7, we have negative 6 multiplied by positive 3. A negative by a positive is a negative. 6 multiplied by 3 is 18. Question 8. Negative 8 multiplied by negative 2. A negative multiplied by a negative is a positive. And 8 multiplied by 2 is 16. So our answer is positive 16. My apologies. Question 9. You have positive 5 multiplied by negative 1. A positive by a negative is a negative. So 5 multiplied by 1 would give you 5. So your answer would be negative 5. And question 10. Our final question in multiplication of directed numbers is negative 6 multiplied by negative 3. And your answer will be positive 18, because a negative by negative is a positive and 6 by 3 is 18. So on the Google Classroom, there would be more questions that you can do for practice. If you haven't been added to the Google Classroom, feel free to message me here and I would add you so that you can get additional notes and materials so that it will help you on your CSAC journey. We're moving on to the rules for division of directed numbers. As I mentioned before, it is the same rules as multiplication. So here we see in a positive divided by a positive is a positive. A negative divided by a negative number is a positive. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. And a negative divided by a positive is a negative. So more or less, with division as well as multiplication, when you have the same signs, two of the same signs, whether it's two positive or two negative, and you multiply them or divide them, you would get a positive. So in this case, in division, when you divide it, the result is known as a quotient. So that's why I said the quotient of two positive numbers is positive. So take, for example, 4 divided by 2. 4 is a positive, 2 is a positive. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So therefore it's positive. Likewise, if you have negative 8 divided by negative 2, negative 8, negative 2, the same sign, a negative and a negative. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So you're going to get the quotient of two negative numbers yielding a positive result. The last set of rules, division with different signs. So whether you have a positive on top and a negative below, or a negative on top and a positive below, kind of like fractions if you want to look at it that way, the quotient of the two numbers with different signs would always be negative. So let's practice. So, 10 simple questions that you can work out. And we have negative 12 divided by 6. Negative 12 divided by 6. That's a negative divided by a positive, which would give me a negative result. And 12 divided by 6 is 2. You'll pause. These are the answers. I realize that my time is running out, so I'm just moving a little bit quicker. So these are the answers here. All right. So you could pause the video so that you could correct it on your own. And I just want to move on to B.O.D.M.A.S. So sometimes you would have more than one operation happening in an expression that we need to solve or to find the value of. And remember that B.O.D.M.A.S, brackets of division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. It tells us the order in which we do the operation. So you always deal with brackets first. You simplify and work out whatever is in the brackets, then you work outer as well. So working from left to right, you'd always do multiplication and division before you do addition and subtraction. So these are the rules here to help you. And this is an exercise that you can do. So you can help pause it so that you can try it. Now that I know that you would have done it, I'm hoping that you're honest. Please be honest. And we'll now go through the solutions, which I will provide for you here. These are the answers, these are the solutions, and you would notice that I take the time to do it. So number 1, we have brackets, so you know that we need to work out those brackets first. 3 take away 5. 3 take away 5 is negative 2, so you work with those brackets, and you put back everything in the same position. All right, so you're going to have 16 divided by 4 multiplied by negative 2, because brackets also means multiplication. So now you're going to say 4 multiplied by negative 2. A positive number multiplied by a negative number would give you a negative. So you end up having 16 divided by negative 8. Now we have a positive number divided by a negative number, and your answer will be negative 2. All right, so these are the other questions and the solutions here. So number 2, we have 24 minus 3 multiplied by negative 4. In terms of brackets, here are the brackets here by the negative 4. They don't have any of, division, no division, so we're dealing with multiplication. So we'd have negative 3 multiplied by negative 4. And negative by negative is a positive. 3 by 4 is 12. So that's how we end up getting 24 plus positive 12. And that's the same as saying 24 plus 12, which we know is supposed to be 36. Moving on to question 3, we have 3 multiply and something in the brackets. We need to simplify the brackets. First, we have 4 take away 7, which is negative 3. So you're going to have this becoming negative 3, and then you're going to have 3 multiplied by negative 3. A positive by negative is a negative, so that's how we get negative 9 as your resulting answer. Question 4, we have 5 divided by 8 minus 7. We got the brackets, 8 minus 7 is 1. So this is an error here, my apologies. You know, sometimes it's happened with math teachers as well. You need to always look over your work. I fail to look over my work, and my sincerest apologies. But as I'm looking it over now, let me correct it. 8 minus 7 is positive 1, so it becomes 5 divided by positive 1, which is positive 5. So please make that correction there. So the answer for number 4 is positive 5 and not the negative 5 that you see there. My apologies, unreal. Question 5, we have 6 plus 8 multiplied by negative 2. 8 multiplied by negative 2 It's negative 16, and 6 plus negative 16 would be 6 minus 16, which is negative 10. And as we are wrapping up, let me give you some homework. Please, on a real, review the work, review this video, look over your notes and directed numbers, write it down in your books, because sometimes just writing it down is help it turn from your short-term memory into your long-term memory. Always review your notes within 24 hours. Those are tips that really helps you in the long run. And to do the assignment that is provided on the Google Classroom and directed numbers, and the solutions will be posted afterwards as well so that you can double check your answers. And how could I leave without giving you 2 nice tips? Tip 1, remember practice makes permanent, so let's practice doing the right thing. And tip number 2, your success depends on you. So it was really nice chatting with you all today, and I really hope that you learned something, was able to revise something today. God's blessings and have a great day. All right, take care. Adios.